And he is like, yeah, I don't know how to best introduce you. So you're a software engineer, you're a data scientist, you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder of startups. So maybe I can just give the word to you, and you can tell a couple of words of
Yes,
what you,
I would
yeah.
say something in the middle actually.
Mhm.
I started coding at 12 actually. So since then, I have always tried to launch new businesses. I was very young when I first launched my business in the gaming industry. It was a browser game back then. I was 15, something like that. Then later on, I started a couple of other businesses in the travel and photography industry in particular, and one of them went pretty well. I sold it 2 years later. Then another one is still up and running, but I'm not involved anymore. And the third one went terribly bad. So I experienced pretty much all the different cases. And so since then, later I decided to move to Berlin, where so I relocated to Berlin, and then I joined a company in the gaming industry as a software engineer. Then one in London, a fintech one in London, Emma, maybe you're familiar with, and
Yeah.
and then finally a browser company. We were trying to challenge the basically Google Chrome, but it didn't work quite well. But still,
Serious?
yeah, it's not super easy to change the habits of users, but still, it was a very very nice journey, and so in the meanwhile, I started launching a couple of side projects on the Gen AI space, basically, and so that's how I approached that. I think I started approaching to AI. I would say a couple of years ago, maybe 1 year and a half ago, and so since then, yeah, I've been quite involved into AI and data more than I used to do, because of course I don't have a strong data analyst background, so uh, I'm trying to catch up, but it's still something relatively new to me. It's 1 year and a half, 2 years that I started exploring the industry. And so, yeah, I was working actually in the trying to solve some issues with the Gen AI for the financial industry, and that's how I had built basically this architecture, and basically one of the building blocks of the architecture was Pandas AI, which is basically a library that tries to make data conversational. So, large language models, you can do a lot of different things. You can ask a lot of different things. You can also try to ask them to reason a little bit. But on the other hand, what happens is that they are not good at doing maths and complex calculations, because they are based on attention, so basically they are good at predicting what comes next based on the context that you provide, but it's not how the mathematics works, so that's why we needed a different approach, and I found that that's basically in Pandas AI, basically. And so it tried to address two different pain points that I was experiencing. First of all, being a casual Pandas user, it was hard for me to figure out every time which command to use. So I was searching on Google, Stack Overflow, sometimes ChatGPT, but that was the idea. And the second one was, of course, the fact that large language models are not good at doing the math, basically, and so the combination of the two, basically, uh, you know from the combination, Pandas AI was born, basically.
Yeah, that's actually a brilliant idea. I think that's totally brilliant, because I'm doing the same. I'm in data science for, I don't know, 8 years, maybe a bit more, but still I'm googling all the functions in pandas, and I'm going to Stack Overflow, and so this tool is kind of a magic wand for us. So hey, pandas, do this, and it should do it. So I would say it's a brilliant idea and super cool. And you
Yeah.
said you started doing the generative AI like a year and a half ago. So I would say that's a pretty fast start into, like, from starting doing something into building a cool tool. Oh, yeah. Are you always like this when you start something? You think like, what is not yet there, and let's implement it.
Oh yeah, I think it's kind of a part of my DNA. That's how I try to reason all the time. I try to be proactive, try to figure out solutions that are not there. But I think it's important to, when you operate in whatever kind of industry, to listen to, first of all, to your problems, because if it's something that you can feel personally, of course and also you have the ability to fix it. Why don't you, why shouldn't you do, so yeah, that's kind of how I tend to reason. So I see this problem, no one else has fixed it, I fix it, and ideally, this has been the very first open source project for me. Like, I mean, I've done smaller things in the past, but definitely not to this extent, but yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense once you have solved something to make it available to everyone, so that they won't have the exact same pain point because someone else has already addressed. So yeah, that's my philosophy a little bit.
Awesome. Great. Yeah, I think that's maybe enough of introduction. People are waiting for us to show something. So what do you suggest for our session? So we have this call-up notebook, right?
Yeah, totally. I would start from there. Yeah, it already provides a couple of examples, and basically, as you can see, Pandas AI is a sort of a superset on the top of Pandas. So you're starting from whatever Pandas data frame, or you can also import like a CSV or XLS, or whatever kind of file, then automatically gets converted to a Pandas data frame if you use the built-in Pandas methods. And so at some point you have a data frame. In this very case, for example, we have we have a very naive data frame that has some information about countries, and for each the GDP and the happiness index. So basically, we can perform a couple of queries to based on this data. Of course, it's a very naive example, but it's quite good to show a little bit how it works under the hood. So what you have to do is you start from the data frame, and then you need a large language model to do this. So you can basically use OpenAI or any kind of inference API from Hugging Face, for example. The one that works the best as of now is OpenAI. I suggest GPT 3.5 because it's good enough. So you don't have ideally to use a GPT-4, which is 10x more costly. So I more expensive. So ideally, you start with GPT 3.5 and you already have a good enough quality. And so basically you have to set the OpenAI API key that we have already done, so that they don't get exposed. And after that, basically you just pass the API key as you instantiate the OpenAI library. But again, not the OpenAI library; it's sort of wrapper to make to instantiate LLM. It can be, for example, star coder from Hugging Face and stuff like that. And there's a lot of documentation that you can find in the GitHub repo. And so basically, you can also try with different large language models. But in this example, we will use the OpenAI one. And so basically, we go to the LLM, we instantiate it with the API key, and after that, it's as easy as instantiating Pandas AI with a LLM. And basically, after that, we pass we run it with passing the data frame and the prompt. So, for example, if we run the Pandas AI, and basically it will instantiate a Pandas AI class and object, and after that, it performs this query. So, for example, what are the 5 happiest countries? You have the data frame with the list of the 5 happiest countries. But you can also perform more complex queries by just changing, for example, if you type instead of what are the 5 happiest countries, you ask, for example, I don't know, let's do an example. What is the sum of the GDP of the 2 unhappiest countries?
Wow.
Basically, what happens there is that...
Whoops, I'm writing on different language. What is the GDP of the 2 most?
Yeah, you can also do the sum, for example, or the average, just to show a more complex query, So you can, in this way, probably it's going to return the GDP of each individually, but I don't know. It's very curious to see what happens. But basically, as you see, it showed the 2 GDPs. But if you ask, for example, the average or the sum, it also does the calculation, and provides you the sum of the 2. the average, that's perfectly fine. So if you run it, it will provide the sum of the average or whatever kind of calculations you want to do. It can be the two unhappiest or other things, but yeah,
Yeah.
this is the average. And one cool thing that you can do if you instantiate Pandas AI with verbose equals true, for example, you can also see. So, for example, if you change you pass verbose equals true, and at
Mhm.
that point, basically, you also get the whole process and the code that gets generated, so that you can also double check what code has been generated, and figure out whether it's the correct code, of course, and then do changes accordingly if you want. So if you want to try, it should not only show the answer, but also all the process that got to the answer.
Yeah.
So
So let's try this.
yeah. Okay, yeah, there's
Okay.
a
Oh yeah.
cache mechanism, so it's blazing fast if you run the same thing again, and basically you
Mhm.
can see the code running, which is basically the one that you can see there. And so yeah, this could be also a very interesting way to learn a little bit more of pandas, or debug a little bit better, or that's kind of the idea. So if you are not a pro pandas user, the idea is that you can a little bit learn in a conversational way and in a in-app experience, basically. So that's the
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I'm super impressed, and my question should be like, how does it work? Like, how do we get from this sentence up to this one? So uh, is GPT model smart enough so that it was trained on tons of texts of what people do in pandas and pieces of code, or there's something additional to that?
Yeah, it's basically a combination of course, the large language model has been trained with a lot of different information, including probably the pandas documentation and plenty of libraries using pandas, or plenty of use cases. So it's I would say it's already smart enough. You just have to figure out the best way to ask the large language model how to provide pandas code, ideally. And so it's a combination of a large language model, a prompt engineering, because there's a prompt that does that and does that quite effectively. And then there's a combination of at the end of the game, what we do is also we test the code, and we like parse the code to remove the most well-known hallucinations. For example, sometimes it tends to override the data frame, and of course, it's not something that you want. So we
Mhm.
tend to remove all these kind of hallucinations that are have been reported in the last few weeks, and so we have a cleaned code that then runs and provides ideally the best quality possible. And yeah, also there's a retry mechanism. So for example, if the code for any reason it doesn't work, there's this retry mechanism that then tends to tries to solve the issue. So if the code raises an error, we catch the error, we send it over to the large language model with some context, and tries to cover these edge cases that might raise an error, and then run the code again and stuff like that. So it's a iteration process. So even though an error is raised, we try to fix it under the hood without the final user being even aware of that.
Wow, that's super cool. So basically, you're working with your, I don't know, less senior colleague, or maybe the same level of colleague, and you tell retry, and this colleague goes back and does something and fixes the error, and well, but now it's all in one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
a iteration mechanism. It's a trial and error. I mean, most of the times the first shot is the right one, but sometimes it's not. So also auto fixes, which is
mhm.
kind of cool. And yeah, overall, it provides a very, very high quality, in the output. But one thing that I think is even more exciting, if you scroll a little bit, is that you can also, for example, plot charts. So it's
Mhm.
not only just you ask questions about data and get some insights, but you can also plot charts. For example, in this case, you can also run again, but basically it's what you see displayed is that if you ask, for example, the histogram of a GDP by country, here's what you get. So it does it automatically. You don't have to run into all the boilerplate things, which is kind of boring, like matplotlib uses matplotlib, but ideally you can use any kind of data
Mm-hmm.
visualization library. And matplotlib can be very verbose, very a lot of
Oh yeah.
boilerplate things that you have to do all the time. So asking in conversational way makes it easier and funnier, to use.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I personally spent most of my time preparing the graphs, like putting the right colors, the right, I don't know, names. That's very annoying with Matplotlib. I agree. So, yeah, I would be happy to, I don't know, to play without it, with it in different. I don't know. Can we try something different? Like, so now it says using different colors for each bar. Can we ask for something more specific?
I hope so. I hope you won't
Yeah.
find a way to break it, but if you find it's good also, because that means that there's a fix to do. So let's try it out.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, so what could it be? Using different colors for each bar? I don't know, but the highest GDP should be black. I'm not sure if I probably wouldn't understand what I just said, but maybe.
Let's try.
Yeah.
Yeah, should all okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, it works.
works.
That's great. I'm really happy. So now
It's
I don't need
powerful,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, and it provided all the code.
Yeah, if you want to have a look at the code, it's also good because you can learn a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, well, now I think I found the solution how to make my work a bit, oh, actually not a bit, but quite faster, at least with the plots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the good news is that, for example, some people are. I mean, most of the people are working with sensitive data, for example. And the cool part is that we have two different options. We have a enforced privacy, which basically don't pass any data at all to the large language model, but it comes with a very slightly worse results. And the reason is because we need to pass some context, ideally, to figure out which kind of how fields are populated. So instead of just passing the metadata, also passing a couple of shots of the potential, fields that how they're populated might help them a lot, but might help the large language model a lot. But and the other option is that if you don't pass enforced privacy, basically,
Mhm.
what we do is that we shuffle data. So that's, for example, if you have a name, surname, address, and a phone number, for example, what happens is that you will have one name with a totally different surname from the data set, and then you will have like the phone number gets reducted, so it generates a random phone number that doesn't exist, and then
Mhm.
the address is yet another address. So that's kind of how it works. It's not fully synthetic data, but still, very shuffled and reducted. So at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's not easy to get insightful data from people, because, for example, you might have like a combination of us, like Igor Venturi, maybe, with a random phone number that doesn't exist. So at the end of the day, it's not a real concern about privacy, because in the end, you don't know who this person doesn't exist.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, super cool. So that's the part of the library itself that you're doing, right? This
Yep.
mhm. Yeah, that's very cool because yeah, I'm working in a consulting company and we have mostly large clients and most of them are very serious about these security things. So I guess that could be a great idea for them to try and use it. It's great. Yeah. I'm still really impressed about the colors. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the
Yeah.
biggest pain points, when you have to figure out and describe too much about, which color you want to use for this column and this other column
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
no,
very.
totally. Yeah, I honestly spent like a lot of time on this. Like you create a graph and then like how to make them like vertical, how to turn them a bit, how to pick the right colors. Yeah, that's
Yeah, what we will work on, for example, is also letting the Pandas AI keep the context. It's not there yet, so you can, for example, do follow-up questions. So every
mm,
question is isolated. You ask and then you get the result. But the goal there is to also being able to do follow-up questions. So, for example, if you have done a question and it generates a chart, what we want to do is making an iterate process, where iterating process. So you start from the current chart, and let's say you want to change something, okay? And that we want to ideally being able to, ask for follow-up questions. So make the second largest GDP column lime, for example, you can ask. I
Is
mean,
it like,
now you
should I do it
can't.
here or?
And now, unfortunately, you can't. And the reason is because
Okay. Okay.
the context, But
Mm-hmm.
ideally, the next step will be you run a pandasai.run, and then you ask another question that is related to what you have done in the right away, And so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of the idea, and how we plan to move on, so that you make it more, iteration game, also generating the chart, but it's conversational instead of having it
Mm-hmm.
being,
Yeah. And for this, you have to kind of instantiate this run, like to create a new conversation in a way, or do you just continue with the same run?
yeah. As of now, you can run as many things as you want because there's no context. So basically, if you want to copy and paste it elsewhere and run again, you don't really have to instantiate once again, because it just the instance just keeps some information about, like, some settings that you want to pass, but it doesn't keep the context. In the future, if you yeah we are figuring out whether we want to keep the context in every case, or we want to have every instance preserves the context. So if you want to ask something different, you have to clean the instance and create a new one.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'm still, yeah. I'm looking, at the code to see something that I can learn for myself. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I see there are some other examples. Should we go into them?
Yeah, one other thing, I hope. Basically, the goal here is, okay, one of the biggest uh, challenges is also merging different data frames. When you have different data frames, you it's not always obvious how to merge them, in a way that makes sense, or you have to figure out how to join them, or stuff like that, or group by, or stuff like that. So the idea here is to make as to use as many data frames as we want, ideally, and let the large language model figure out, based on the question that we ask, what's the best, where it can provide the answer. And in this
Mhm.
very case, for example, it asks for a question that basically has to, who gets paid the most. None of the table is enough to provide the answer, because you have the employee ID and the names, for example, and the department, which is totally useless for this query. But
Mhm.
for example, if you want to know how much each of them is paid, you have to use the other data frame, And
Yeah.
so the idea is to have it, to have them both combined to then provide the most quality answer. Because um, with just salaries, you could say employee one is the most paid, which is not true, by the way. It's employee four is the most paid, but
Mhm.
you don't have the name. And with the other one, you only have the names. So basically, if you run it, you should get the answer of who is paid the most, actually.
Mhm.
Ideally, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it
And we
sh-
get the code, I guess.
yeah, now it's generating the code, and as you can see, Olivia is the one that is paid the most. So
And
if you double
let's
check,
see.
you can see that you see Olivia is the fourth one, and which is the ones that is paid the most, and it does it by itself. So now it's a very naive example, but I think at a larger scale, how much time it can save you. So that you
Mhm.
have already the answer, because it merges the data frame, for example, and then figures out which one is the max paid employed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I see that how smart it is. So it merges, it understands the column itself. Wow. Like recently I was meeting a friend of mine and he was asking me about exact these things. So he was saying, like, do you know if there is a tool that, I don't know, every bank has a database of a couple of hundred different tables. And if there was a tool like find me the top, I don't know, client who had the highest transaction in the last months, something like this. So
Yeah, that That's where it all started, like it started from banks, because banks have a lot of different and fragmented data frames, not data frames, but like they have services with SQL databases, and Oracle, and then they have maybe Salesforce, even though it's not common in banks, but and finding a way that it's easy for them to merge and ask in a conversational way is exactly the goal of this library. And this is a very painful things in banks, but also in marketing, when you have to deal with a lot of data, as far as I realized. For example, if you want, who are the top 5 spenders, people that spend the most in our e-commerce, and you can easily do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to experiment. I don't know. So now we have 5 different departments. If I make, for example, this one, the IT as well, and this one, marketing. So I just like.
Let's try to break it. Should we?
No, I mean, I don't want to break it. I just want to ask something different. It's which, yeah, what department has the highest average salary? Does it make sense? So we have 3
So,
departments and salaries. Yeah, I don't know the answer for myself. So the highest IT will be plus 500. Yeah, it should be marketing or sales, I guess. Yeah.
weird enough,
Let's.
IT is the least paid.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and maybe if I what department has the highest average salary? How can I maybe output? Output salary as well. I don't know if it understands my weird English, but
Okay, yeah, let's try. I mean, kind of works, I would say. Or otherwise, yeah, we can reformulate a little bit, but I think you should understand actually. Let's see.
yeah, yeah,
It does.
that's perfect. Marketing with the average salary of 60 to 150. Yeah, man, that's awesome. I'm just super happy. I'm smiling.
Yeah, as you can see, you see there's like the code generated and the code run. And this is because, for example, the code generated can contain some hallucinations, and as you can see, it's longer. Then this is the one that the large language model generates. But then, if you see the code running is a shorter and more straight to the point. And that the reason is because we do this cleanup after that, and we remove the hallucinations that are the most well known that we figured out. And that's, if you run the other one, might work, might not work, but the code running most of the times works perfectly. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. Did you like how many data did you try to put in there and check whether it's understands yeah what to do?
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
tried
curious.
also with big data. So it's not a matter of how many data are involved, because at the end of the day, what it does is it just passes the metadata and some context, some shots of data that are possible values. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really make a difference. What might hallucinate the model a little bit is that, and you might be familiar with that if you worked with banks, for example, is that most, or not most, but sometimes there are their columns are named in very weird ways that are not meaningful at all. And that when this happens, of course, then the model might not be the best at figuring out what that column is meant to represent. So if
Yeah, yeah,
you do, I don't know, sometimes there are very weird and misleading names in the columns, and so yeah, the model might fail at understanding what it's about, and so
yeah.
the code might not be the correct one because of that.
Yeah, I've actually discussed this with a friend of mine that I was talking about, and I thought that maybe if you provide the model with some description of the whole database, like this table is about this, the columns are about this, then it could be able to do the all the math. I don't know.
Yeah,
I of course never tried,
yeah. I think
but
I mean, ideally, one thing that we are considering is like if there are some names that are not, you know, very understandable, having a sort of description to the column, you know, for at least these names, and then let the large language model come up with a name that kind of overrides the original name, at least internally, definitely not in the table itself, but you know, internally for internal use, and then have this kind of dictionary that pairs the original misleading name with the correct one to then elaborate correctly. You know, that's kind of the idea. But
mhm.
still, it might take some time to get to this high level of efficiency. But apart from these misleading names, it works quite well. You know.
Yeah, but to be honest, I really see it as a magic tool for a lot of big companies like banks. So they have. I worked in the bank for 3 years, and there were quite a lot of tables that I had no idea what data they have. So I had to like call someone, then call someone of the someone, and so on to just understand what is in the database. And then someone told me, yeah, there is a documentation file, just read it. And now if you have this documentation file, you just feed it to the language model and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. I think this could be like a really real breakthrough for that kind
I
of
think
businesses. Yeah.
if there's a the documentation file, it will work just perfectly. You know, it's just
Yeah.
about a matter of providing context, ideally. But yeah, with
Yeah.
documentation, it's gonna be easy.
And now it honestly scares me because what would I do in this case?
No, but I think that the truth is that I mean in my understanding is like the truth is AI is not meant to replace us. It's just meant to empower us with new skills to focus on what matters. We will still have to we shouldn't give away our reasoning. It's just about, okay, I know what I want to do. I will
Mhm.
have a tool that does it more effectively and in less time. That's the idea
Yeah.
to me. You should never replace us. I really hope so, at least. But
I really hope so.
I think
Yeah.
AGI is not coming anytime soon. If you the more I dig into attention and transformers based large language models, and the more I realized how limited they can be at some point.
Mhm.
So I think AGI, if it comes, and it will come maybe, but it's not going to be with the current technology. We need a new technology, a new technology paradigm to then maybe try to pursue the AGI path. But I don't think it's close, to be fair. Might be
Yeah.
completely wrong. Maybe in today's open control or whatever releases, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know the outcome of that. I really hope it's not gonna be under the corner.
Yeah, I also hope that we have some time to just have fun and experiment before it comes. Yeah, totally. But I honestly think that this could be a really cool tool because there are so many people in, I don't know, banks or that kind of organizations that are not super like familiar with coding, and we have SQL for like getting the information from the databases, but even SQL could be sometimes a bit too complicated. And then yeah, then this way of doing things is much easier. So you don't have to write select some things from, join, where, and so on. You just write a sentence and you have the answer. I think that could really democratize the, I don't know, the work of the BI analysts or someone else. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I think if you want my 2 cents about this, I think it's not quite ready yet for people that are non-technical at all. I mean, you still need some kind of expertise to be aware of what happens under the hood. Figuring out which code is executed, how it got to the solution. Because when it's very sensitive, the information that you get, of course, you don't want to blindly trust an AI algorithm to do that. So
Mhm.
can definitely speed up your job, your work, but it's not yet a replacement. And I I hope it won't be. So basically, some technical expertise might be still required as of now. You know,
Yeah.
I like it honestly. It's just I don't know. I think what I like about Pandas AI is that it integrates within the same workflow of people that was doing the same things but with pandas, for example. And now they can do that in an easier way, ideally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just a question for me. So how complicated would it be to integrate it with NumPy, for example?
Not that complicated actually. I've tried to come up with some NumPy related things. And I think it's gonna come pretty soon. The support for NumPy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was already supported back in the days, but it wasn't officially supported. And now we plan to make it, yeah, to extend the support, and also yeah, to provide a very high quality also in the NumPy code. Because as of now it's supported ideally, but it's not perfect at all. So we want to get to the level that is high enough to then officially say, hey, also NumPy is supported. That's the idea.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And so, yeah, that kind of yeah. Just a question: do you want to that we try to show a bit of more things, or otherwise I have some other questions to you that I'm
Um,
interested in.
yeah, I think these are like the most naive examples. I think in the documentation there's other examples also. In the you can see also examples that you can run. I think it's more about it's funnier for people to just play around with it a little bit and find the use cases themselves and the limitations also. And if any limitations pops out, of course, feel free to raise an issue, open an issue on GitHub, and we will try to address to make it better and better.
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. Thanks for this, and that actually leads me to my next, I don't know, series of questions. So I'm really interested how it all works in terms of the project for you. So you are the founder of it, right? So that's kind of initially your idea, but I saw that in the people who collaborated, there are like around almost 20 people. So how does it work for you? How's it happening?
Yeah, I think the good thing about open source is that people want to genuinely take part of the process, like being somehow part, yeah, of this thing that maybe those are mostly pandas users or people that has used and felt the pain, and they want to genuinely contribute to going to the next level of pandas. And so yeah, it came yeah, very spontaneously from them. It's not like something that's I had to push. Some people they just started raising issues and sometimes solving the issues by themselves, and so that's very good. And also now we have a Discord group where we try to talk a little bit of what's next. Like the vision, the future steps for Pandas AI. So it's what I really liked is that it's very spontaneous. You don't have to push. Sometimes I create an issue. I ping people on Discord. Hey, does anyone wants to work on this or this other issue? And then they just assign it to me, and they start working on that, and they do magic. For example, one thing is that the multiple data frame support has been added by a third party, like a contributor, and it was very nice because I think it's one of the coolest features, but it wasn't in the original core. There was an issue for that, and at some point they just pick it and work on it, and so it's very powerful. That's the power of open source, actually.
Yeah, that's really brilliant. So basically, I don't know, it's in a way a self-organized system. So you don't like go around and say like you do this, and I will take care of this. Yeah.
Yeah, like people should have fun doing what they want to do. It's open source. You do it for free. There's no like any kind of reward, economical reward. So at the end of the day, you can't be like the boss and say, hey, you have to do this. It's a very spontaneous. You like this task, go for it. I like this other task, I go for it. That's what is magical about the open source ecosystem, which is
Yeah.
actually something I wouldn't say new to me, but new to me from this perspective. Because when you are a contributor to other libraries, you don't really realize how things really work. When
Mhm.
you have to deal with all these things, then it's a totally different perspective. What I can say, yeah.
Yeah, I can guess. I can guess. And how was it in the very beginning? So I suppose you created some very first version, and then I don't know, you wrote a blog post which people read, or how did you get the first contributors?
Yeah, it has been quite of. I mean, it has been super fast. Everything that has happened super fast, and I think it's insane if you consider that a lot of libraries take forever to get to 3K stars or something like that. And so I've been lucky to some extent, but also maybe I made something that people really want. That could also be an idea. And so yeah, basically, what happened was that I posted on LinkedIn the very first day that I released the library, and the post kind of became almost viral. I also had this, AI generated panda image, which it's kind of eye catching. Then you call it Pandas AI, so it's also understandable. The value proposition is adding AI on the top of pandas. So it makes a
Mm.
lot of sense. And so yeah, people can understand right away what the library is meant to do. And since this pain point was present on them, they started using and they started contributing and they started saying, hey, what if you add this feature or that feature? And so it happened quite fast, I would say. Then many AI newsletters started publishing, talking about Pandas AI as well. So it happened quite, yeah, I would say quite fast. And I think the highest reward was at some point when we were number one trending on GitHub, like
Oh,
worldwide. And it's not something that everyone can say. So it has been very, very rewarding and incredible ride. I mean, if you consider, like, we released it, I think it was 1 month and a half ago, something like that. So it grew kind of exponentially. So yeah.
yeah, just awesome! Like a really awesome story. I'm super happy for you. Like 1 month and a half, and you already have thousands of stars and a lot of publications and you mentions in newsletters. Super awesome. Yeah, I don't know if you'd like, could you share some future plans for Pandas AI? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the goal here is to make data analysts and data scientists' lives easier and easier, ideally. And so, first of all, doing the follow-up questions like that I was describing is definitely going to be a priority. But also, we want to do a lot of things I mean, the data analysts are doing mostly a couple of things, like data cleaning. So, finding a way to have pandas.ai.clean or something like that. That data cleaning is definitely going to be a priority for us. But also, I mean, you can already do that. For example, so if you ask to clean your data, does some, understand a little bit of how data is, and so it removes the null values and sometimes, yeah, does some other transformations a little bit. So you can already do that in theory, but you have to come up with a prompt to do that, and ideally having a function that does that right away is even better. And then a lot of other things about data augmentation. Um, yeah, basically, yeah. Also, for example, one big goal is to make dashboards easier. Like
Mhm.
now, dashboarding can be quite complex, and sharing the dashboard that you generate, it's not very um, smooth as a process. Not all the time. So having a way to integrate this feature within Pandas AI to make it super easy to create a dashboard, for example, is something that we will think about in the future weeks, actually. But yeah, that's the idea. I mean, the bigger vision is making it more making data analysis more accessible and more smooth, as a process. So remove all these pain points that are very that has been there for years now, and I think it makes sense to not have them anymore. That's the idea.
Totally, that's a great target and a great aim. So sounds really awesome. Yeah. And for the people who might want to join you, how is it like? You just go to join your Discord, start participating in conversation, and offer the help. Or how's it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, joining the Discord is, I would recommend it like the first step. But also, I mean, they can start opening issues if they see any pain point that hasn't been addressed, for example, or any use case or edge case that doesn't work as they would expect, or also picking some issues, that they can also say, there are a little bit of issues, like 30 issues or something like that on the repo as of now, so they can just say, hey, I don't want to work on this, and then I will assign it, and they can start working on that right away. That's the idea. Everyone is more than welcome, as a contributor. So we really believe that everyone that wants to participate into the future developments should, if they want, of course.
Yeah, super awesome. Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to ask you. Well, maybe like a lot of people are interested how to be so proactive. I don't know how to get there and see the things that should have been done to make I don't know, programming or data science easier. Do you, I don't know, have some advices like what do you read, what do you listen to, how do you think about it to have kind of the same mentality as yours?
I think the biggest secret is stop complaining. One thing that I was doing back in the years when I was younger, was complaining. I mean, this is not possible. I complain because this is not possible. And the real switch is, okay, if this is not possible, then there is an opportunity. If this is not possible, it doesn't mean that it is not possible at all, but it means that you are the one that have to make it possible. And that's when you start reasoning like that. Yeah, chances are sometimes it's actually not possible for real, and it will never be possible, or at least not anytime soon. But some other times it's so easy and so naive for you to just do it. That's the idea. uh, I mean, a lot of books or reads about self-improvement are out there, but at the end of the day, you have to really change your mindset, and it's quite easy. You just have to start doing it. So instead of procrastinating or searching for truths out there, it's right in front of you. You just have to start doing it. And I think this is a very easy uh, yeah idea of there's a problem, how can I solve it. So not complaining and proactively thinking. That's the idea.
Totally, yeah. Thanks a lot. So people just, if you have some problems, just stop complaining and just go and do it. Yeah, that's how you should go about it. Yeah, I totally love it. I totally agree. Yeah, I think that's the best way. Great. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Because I think you shared quite a lot about the package. We tried about a couple of things, and you told us what are the next steps. So definitely we should follow it, and I personally will. Um,
Yeah, I think it's kind of everything on my side. Yeah, I think I don't know if the ones that are listening, one thing that I can share is that we are living in my opinion, in a very in a turning point. Like I think it's as big as the internet. The shift that we are living, like the moment in which we are living. It's a huge shift. And everything will be shifting towards generative AI and AI more in general. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities. So just to link to what we just said, about problems and things that are not possible. A lot of things will be possible now. So try to I mean, in my idea, even though you are not related to data or to AI at all, start having a little bit of a understanding of how it works, and start considering running something yourself on the top of this technology, because this is for real a game changer, and there are so many opportunities out there that are only waiting for smart people to to fix them, basically.
Yeah, totally. I can only second that, and that sounds quite inspirational. So I think even though it's Saturday, I will try and do something now.
Yeah, super
Cool.
curious to see what you come up with.
Yeah, same for me. Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, Gabriele. It was a really cool session. Thank you for introducing the tool that you're working on and saying a lot of nice things, and also sharing your vision of how the world can evolve in the future. Thanks a lot for coming. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure. Feel free to each of you to reach me out if you have any questions.
totally. Totally. Yeah. So there are in the description, there are some links, so you can reach out to Gabriele. And yeah, cool. Yeah, that was X Technology. And have a happy Saturday, everyone. So see you next time. Bye
Bye.
bye.